Adeze started with a single market stall in Onitsha, selling imported pharmaceuticals. 15 years later, she supplies hospitals across 3 states, growing her company to 30 employees with a reputation for delivering when others fail. She watched government officials fumble the meningitis response for weeks, procurement delays she could have solved in days, shipments sitting in warehouses while people died waiting. She knew the supply chains, she knew the solutions, and she kept asking herself a question she couldn't shake. Why was she watching from outside? Halima has built 12 schools in rural Kano. 4,000 girls who would have had no education now have futures. International donors call her work a model for the region. Local politicians call her when they need photo opportunities. Every year she traveled to the State Assembly to advocate for education funding. Every year they smiled, thanked her, posed for photographs, and allocated the money elsewhere. She began to realize that advocacy from outside had limits. To change the budget, you had to be in the room where budgets were made. Folake bills more hours than any other partner at her law firm. Before law, she spent a decade in banking, restructuring deals and managing portfolios worth billions. She knows how money moves, how power operates, how decisions get made behind closed doors. She had advised legislators on financial policy for 20 years, written their speeches, corrected their mistakes, structured the deals they took credit for, and at some point, a thought began to crystallize in her mind. Why was she always the one behind the chair, never in it? 3 women, 3 regions, 3 very different lives built on the same foundation: competence, persistence, the belief that problems exist to be solved. Each asked herself the same question that year: how hard could it be to run for office in order to make the necessary change in their community? Well, they were about to find out. Folake learned the first lesson quickly. Democracy has a cover charge. 22 million naira, almost $50,000, just to purchase the nomination form. But here's what she doesn't realize yet. The nomination form is just the beginning. To win a primary, you need to secure delegates, and delegates expect compensation. 10 million, 20 million, 50 million more, depending on how the race is contested. Then comes the actual campaign. Staff, transportation, advertising, rallies across every local government. Another 30 to 50 million minimum. Win the election and your opponent may challenge the result in court. Months of tribunal proceedings, legal teams billing by the hour. A serious Senate campaign in Nigeria costs 200 million naira. And that's if everything goes smoothly. Folake earns well. Very well, as a matter of fact. But politics at this level isn't a campaign. It's a hostile acquisition. The question isn't whether she could technically afford it. The question is, what would she have to liquidate, leverage, or owe? Adeze, on the other hand, didn't have Folake's resources. But she had something she thought would be enough. A business turning over 40 million naira a year, contracts with federal hospitals, 15 years of records proving she paid her debts. What she didn't have, what she had never thought to question, was a landed property in her name. The bank needed hard collateral, property, land, something they could hold. Her business success, her client list, her reputation, none of it qualified. They needed assets, and assets meant real estate. Her father's land had gone to her brothers. That was Igbo custom. Daughters receive cash settlements, sons receive property. A Supreme Court ruling in 2014 declared such practices unconstitutional, but customs don't read court decisions. Her brothers had land, she had money, but that was already spent. The warehouse she operated from was leased. The family home was registered in her husband's name. That's how it had been done. That's how it has always been done. Adeze, at 43 years old, had built a company from nothing, employed dozens of families, solved distribution problems that defeated government agencies, and still, she could not borrow money in her own name to run a political campaign, as lenders avoided her like a plague. Halima faced everything Adeze faced, and more. In Kano, running for office as a woman meant running 2 campaigns simultaneously. Cultural practices meant separate logistics. Women-only campaign events to reach female voters observing Purda, the practice of keeping women secluded from public view. Female staff for female outreach. No shared vehicles with male campaign workers. Every rally, every event, every grassroots contact cost double because she was effectively running parallel operations. The international foundations that funded Halima's schools could not fund political campaigns. She knew how to raise money for education. She had mobilized hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years. But political money moved through networks she had never been invited to join. 3 women, 3 regions, different obstacles with the same shape. The system wasn't necessarily built to explicitly keep them out. However, it was built to require things they systematically did not have. There is another way to fund a campaign. Everyone in Nigerian politics knows about it, but no one discusses it directly. The Godfathers. Wealthy political patrons who finance campaigns in exchange for loyalty. They exist in every region, every party, every level of government. Men who have accumulated enough resources to influence electoral outcomes. Falakia had been connected to one through intermediaries, friends of friends who suggested she take a meeting. He liked her profile, he said. Legal background, very impressive. The Senate needed people who understood finance, understood how things worked. He could ensure she had what she needed for the primary. And afterward, they would work together. Mutual benefit. She asked what he would expect from her specifically. He smiled and waved the question away. No need to discuss details now. First, she would win. Then she would understand how things worked. In 2006, Rashidi Ladoja was removed as governor of Oyo State. His offense? Refusing to pay his godfather 15 million naira every month from the state security budget. The godfather had made him. The godfather expected returns. When Ladoja resisted, the godfather had him unmade. The system has a price for entry and a price for staying. The same offer was extended to these 2 women through different doors: financial backing, delegate support, a clear path to victory. All that was required was an understanding, an agreement, a debt that would never fully come due because it would never be fully defined. Adeze had wanted to fix broken systems. But what would it mean to owe her seat to someone who profited from keeping systems broken? Halima had spent a decade building something independent, something that belonged to the community. They were asking her to trade that independence for access. Folake knew exactly how these arrangements worked, as she had in the past structured similar deals for clients. She understood that the debt never got paid off. It just got managed forever. Each of them had to answer the same question. What was she willing to owe? Halima ran the numbers one final time. A competitive House of Representatives campaign would drain the reserves she had put aside for 3 new schools. Schools that would educate 1,000 girls. Girls who might one day not have to make the choice she was making now. She asked herself, what changes more? One seat she might not win in a system designed to neutralize her, or 1,000 girls who would definitely learn, definitely grow, definitely carry new possibilities into the future. She chose the girls. This time, Adeze ran anyway. She cobbled together what she could, personal savings, family loans, small donations from professional women who believed in her. The party's fee waiver for women covered the nomination form. She campaigned on weekends, running her business during the week, sleeping 4 hours a night for 3 months straight. She received 18% of delegate votes. Her opponent, backed by 2 godfathers and funded at 5 times her level, took the nomination comfortably. A party delegate found her afterward, a woman who seemed enthusiastic during the campaign. She wanted to vote for Adaeze, she said. She believed in what Adaeze stood for. But the other side had come to her house. They had given her husband money. What could she do? Folake did the math. Without support, she would lose. With the wrong support, she would owe everything. So, she negotiated. A narrower arrangement than the godfather wanted, broader than she was comfortable with. She would have some autonomy on policy. He would have access to strategic contracts. Although not comfortable with the arrangement, she was, at least, able to live with it. She won the primary. She won the general election. But winning wasn't the end. It was the beginning of another battle. Her defeated opponent challenged the result in court. The tribunal lasted 4 months. His resources for legal warfare seemed unlimited. Motion after motion, appeal after appeal. Folake spent 40 million naira defending a seat she had already won at the ballot box. 40 million to keep what voters had already given her. She won, twice at the polls, once in court. She would take her seat in the Senate. But she had made compromises to get here, spent a fortune to stay here, and emerged owing debts, some financial, some political, which would shape her entire term going forward. Walking out of that courthouse, one thought overshadowed everything else. How many women could survive what she had just survived? And at what cost? One withdrew, one lost, one won, but at a tremendous cost. With compromises she'll carry throughout her term. 3 women, 3 regions, 1 system. In the 2023 Nigerian elections, women's representation fell to its lowest level since 2007. 90% of women who ran did so on minor party tickets. Parties with little resources, no realistic path to victory. Nigeria now ranks 181st out of 193 countries when it comes to women's representation in political office, worse than a decade ago. But here's the question: did it have to be this way? What could have changed? Adaeze built a business worth 14 million naira a year, but she couldn't borrow money because she owned no land. Her father's property went to her brothers. Her home was in her husband's name. The bank said no. But the Gender and Equal Opportunities Bill, already passed in 5 Nigerian states, guarantees women equal inheritance rights and equal access to credit. If it passed federally, Adaeze would have had collateral. She could have funded her own campaign. Halima withdrew because competing would have drained the money she needed to educate 1,000 girls. She chose the girls. But Nigeria's proposed specific seats bill would create reserved legislative positions specifically for women. Seats that would be a lot more difficult to be bought over by godfathers. With reserved seats, Halima could have served in the House and built her schools. The impossible choice she faced would never have existed. Folake won, but only after making uncomfortable compromises with party godfathers, then spending 14 million naira defending her election victory in court. She entered the Senate owing both financial and political debts, which would ultimately shape her entire term. But public financing for women candidates, like Togo's model, which allocates funding based on women elected, would have reduced her dependence on godfathers. And strict enforcement of campaign finance limits would have leveled the playing field entirely. Folake wouldn't have had to mortgage her independence to serve her country. The question has never been whether Nigerian women can lead. They've proven that. The question is whether Nigeria will let them. The policies exist. The evidence is clear. What remains is the choice. And the choice is being made now.